Here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I'm your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490am.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank you all for tuning in. This month in 1952 marks arguably baseball's most historic pitching record of all time. Here to talk about this feat is the pitcher who holds that record. I welcome to the program 1952 Pirates pitcher Ron Necciai. Ron, Brian, C., it is an honor to have you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me. It should be fun.
It'll be fun. Ron, let me begin by asking you about your roots in baseball. How did your interest and love for the game begin?
Well, just as a kid in grade school, we started playing. I had to have something to do. I grew up in a little wee teeny town called Gallatin, where everybody played soccer. It was a mining mill town, and lots of Italians and Polish people and Slavish that played soccer. And to have something to do, we're talking about in the 1930s, where I was born, on up, and I always had to have something to do. And kids played football, baseball, not basketball, but soccer and whatever. And I like to play.
And you grew up in Pennsylvania. Which ball player did you grow up idolizing?
Really not any. Bob Feller, I guess, after I got bigger. I wasn't a great fan. I played for something to do. I just like to play sports, and no great idols. Stan Musial was an idol, and I got to know him when I played at Pittsburgh, and he's from Donora, and that was really about it. Not great worshiper.
And Ron, how did you first hear that the pirate organization was interested in you?
That's a strange story. One of my best friends, a kid I grew up with all my life with and played all through grade school and high school, is named Alec D. Rosen. He's quite a catcher and played on all our teams. And Pirates were interested in signing him, but he was interested in the Giants. There was no draft back then. And anyhow, they couldn't get him to get into Forbes Field to a tryout, and they figured if they invited me, Alec would come, which was true. And they invited me, and I wound up signing with the Pirates. I thought I was a first baseman. That's what I played. I was never a pitcher. As a kid, I was a first baseman, and Alec was a catcher, and he later signed with the Giants and then had some health problems. But anyhow, I signed, and I thought I was going to be a first baseman, but that changed real quickly when I went in. Besides that, I was working in a mill that paid nothing, and they offered me $150 a month to go play in the Class D League, and I thought anything is better than the mill, and I did it, which was, I don't know whether it was a mistake or not, but anyhow, I did and got there in North Carolina, and George Detour, who was the manager, after a couple of days, I can remember him telling me, son, you don't run fast enough and you don't hit it far enough to be a first baseman. You're going to be a pitcher. And I thought, oh, here we go. I don't know why I did this. And it turned out to be good and then bad, too. So that's how I wound up in baseball.
We're talking to a Pittsburgh legend, Ron Necciai. Ron, let's talk about your amazing feat, the feat that the National Association of Pro Baseball calls the greatest individual performance in the history of baseball. This is when you struck out 27 batters. Can you walk me through that day in 1952, the 13th of this month?
Well, I don't know what you mean walking through. I can tell you.
Did you get a good night's sleep the day before? Did you eat your Wheaties that morning? What do you remember most about prior to the start of that great performance?
Not much. I back in those days, I had a lot of stomach problems. I had been with the Pirates in spring training and was doing well with them. And on the way back, barnstorming east before the season started in '52, we got to New Orleans. And when I got there, I had ulcer problems forever and got bleeding ulcers, and they decided to send me back to Pittsburgh to the doctor to find out what to do about my bleeding ulcers, and I left the club and got back to Pittsburgh and spent my time with doctors for a couple of weeks, whatever they do. And Mr. Rickey said, "Okay, son, we think you're ready to go back to play baseball. Where do you want to go?" And I thought, geez, I don't know. Where's George Detour, who was the manager I'd had the year before, and decided I was going to be a pitcher, and I thought he was crazy. And anyhow, they said, "George is in Bristol." And I said, "Fine, can I go there?" I had no idea what Bristol was, where, or anything else. And they said yes, and that's how I wound up there, but still had lots of stomach problems, was taking medications, and in those days they give you black pills called Banthine or something, and milk, which was the worst thing, but it was what they thought did you the good. And I smoked a lot in those days, and I guess that didn't help it any, and was having problems with my stomach. And that night I can remember George and Dunlop and him talking to me, and he said, "Well, give it a go and go as long as you can, and if you can't and your stomach bothers you, we'll get you out of there." And I said, "Okay," and you know what happened. So, but as far as the game itself went, I didn't realize what was going on, that everybody was striking out because, as you know from the record, I think I hit one, walked one, I don't know what else happened. It wasn't like 27 men in a row came to bat and 27 men struck out. That was not it. And I always was known for throwing lots and lots of pitches because my control was not great. I could lead the league in walks and strikeouts everywhere I went, I think. But as it progressed and when the game was over, I didn't realize that 27 guys had struck out either. And I got in the locker room with George Detour. I can remember him, Dunlop, coming up and saying, "Geez, you realize what you did?" And I said, "No, what?" I didn't think anything of it. And said, "Well, you struck out 27 batters." And said, "Well, geez, I was always a wise cracker anyhow." And I can remember saying, "Well, so what? They've been playing this game for 100 years, and somebody's done it before, who, or something of that nature." And they said, "No, nobody's ever done it before. They won a lifetime in one night, I guess." That's really the truth. I didn't realize what had happened till after it was over. And it was tough after that. Everybody thought, go ahead.
No, I mean, you were 19 years old, and this was the game, your team, the Bristol Twins versus the Welch Miners, and you struck out 27 batters in 9 innings. And then I read something that your next start, you threw a 24 strikeout 2-hitter.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, come on. This record in organized baseball, I can't see it ever being broken, Ron.
Well, I get that question a lot, and I still think these guys are bigger and stronger than we are. They're more well-trained, I think, and they do things today that we never thought of doing in those days. And I think mostly that would be because of the pitch counts. Pitcher throws the ball 100 times, and he's out of there. Well, I've always said if they took me out at the end of 100 pitches with all the balls I threw, I'd probably be a 4-inning pitcher. I never threw, George Detour, I can remember, always used to tell me, "Son, before the game started, throw strikes. Can you keep that in your mind? Throw strikes." Well, I tried to throw strikes, but I never had great control. And I guess that helped, too, because, if you can throw it, they tell me I could throw pretty hard, and I don't know. I never hit against me, and they had no radar guns, and nobody knew how hard the ball went. So I don't know if it was any harder than anybody else, but the hitters have a tendency to stay a little bit looser. They don't dig in as deep as they think they're going to stick them, and that helped a lot, too, I think. I don't know for sure.
And Ron, I don't know if you're aware of this. There are websites that, speaking about your pitches, there are websites that have your curveball ranked ahead of the great Sandy Koufax and the iconic Christy Mathewson. They said that when you threw a curveball, it was equivalent to today throwing a split finger fastball. That's how vicious your curveball was.
I don't know, but that's strange too. I have what you call long joints in my elbows, and I can't throw a curveball the way you normally throw curveballs, kind of three-quarter spinning the ball. Every time I tried that, it wound up being a line drive someplace that they could reach it. And George Detour showed me how to kind of throw it halfway between a curve and a drop. And that worked real well for me. It's hard to control, and most catchers didn't like me because they used to say, who's going to box them up for Necciai tonight? Meaning, if you were going to box oranges, you pick them up off the ground and put them in a box. Well, the curveballs a lot of times didn't get the home plate or something, and they were always in the dirt 90% of the time, and that's what helped. But I didn't realize it, and that was just because of my arm, and that was George Detour, the guy who decided it. I told him when he decided I was going to be a pitcher and not a first baseman. I told him he was a drugstore Indian, too, but it worked, I guess. And I don't know. I never batted against me, and I couldn't hit anybody anyhow. And I don't know how people rank them or how they do these things. That's beyond my comprehension. So,
yeah, and you mentioned. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And you mentioned the fastball. I mean, there's a quote saying that Branch Rickey once was quoted saying that you had the meanest fastball a batter can face, and he said it was meaner than Dizzy Dean. So I mean, what was your relationship with Branch Rickey? Did you have a relationship with Branch Rickey?
Yes, I think they used to call me Ricky's fair-haired boy or something like that. I think that was the truth. No, he was very, very encouraging. I'll tell you a short story. Back in 1951, when I was playing in the Class D League in Salisbury, North Carolina, I roomed with a kid from Donora, Kenny Barbo, who I played high school ball against and Legion ball with and that. And we both roomed together, and that's when I became the pitcher. And it got so bad, I mean, I couldn't get anybody out. I walked everybody. I was disgusted and absolutely wanted to quit. So one day I told Kenny Barbo I was going down to the ballpark to see the business manager and get bus fare. I was going home and quit. I could do as well in the mill. I wasn't doing any good there. Well, I got down there, and I decided I wanted to quit, and George Detour was in the office, and he said to me, well, son, and we traveled on a 17-passenger GMC bus. And he said to me, son, can you drive the bus? I don't want you to go home. If you can drive the bus, we were starving. I was making $150 a month. He said, son, if you can drive the bus, I'll let the relief pitcher go who drives the bus, and we'll pay $100 a month to stay and drive the bus, and then you can play and stay. You won't starve. And I went back and told Barbo we're rich. We're now making $250 a month, and that's what kept me in baseball. Otherwise, I'd have quit. I was going home, and it was all George. And then he told me a couple of days later, Branch Rickey Jr. was running the farm system. He said, I'll tell you what, son, Mr. Rickey Jr. is coming down, Branch Jr., they used to call him the Twig. And he came down, and I pitched, and I apparently had a good night. And I can remember him talking to me and said, son, if you get your act together, we'll send you someplace where you can make some money. And you'll like baseball. And I don't know, I got it together for 3 or 4 games and wound up in New Orleans where Rip Sewell, the old Pirate pitcher, was the manager. And he was supposed to teach me to pitch. And I think I was there 3 weeks, and he finally knew I was there. It didn't help. And that's where I met Frank Thomas, who you had on a couple of weeks ago. And we've been friends ever since. I know Frank, and really that's how I got in baseball and stayed in baseball. And Mr. Rickey was very, very encouraging and helped me quite a lot with other things and got Bill Burwell and a lot of instructions. And I still think Mr. Rickey's top is fantastic. To me, anyhow, he really took care of me. So, yes.
Yeah, and of course, many know Branch Rickey was the instrumental force in breaking Major League Baseball's color barrier by signing Jackie Robinson. So you mentioned Frank Thomas, Ron. How was your relationship with Frank Thomas, Ralph Kiner, Dick Grote on that 1952 Pirates team? Were you guys close?
No, they treated me very well. Ralph Kiner was a good guy. He was making a couple of bucks. A couple was making about $80,000. Everybody else was making, I don't know, $5,000 or something, or very low. And he was very kind with all the guys. He was a great guy, a great teammate, very encouraging. He was just as good with the rookies, and we had a club full of them as he was with the stars. The guys on the club that were great, Garagiola, Frank Thomas. When I played with him in New Orleans, Frank hit so many home runs. There was a guy that used to give him a pair of packs. It was called Slacks for No Wax in New Orleans, and he'd give him a sport coat or a pair of pants every time he hit a home run. And I think Frank outfitted the ball club with the sport coats and pants, and it was kids like us. No, I did like Mr. Rickey. He was very, very encouraging to me. And, Mr. Rickey was, in part of his religion, he never went to the ballpark on Sunday.
Oh, really?
Never went on Sunday. Nope. He promised his mother. Anyhow, go ahead.
Yeah, and you only played 1 year in 1952 with the Pirates. Why did you only play that one season, Ron?
Well, in the spring of '53, I was drafted into the Army, and I was part of the Willie Mays scandal, as they called it in those days. And after I got out of the Army, I got a medical discharge for bleeding ulcers. I spent more time in a hospital than I did in the Army, really, when I was in the Army. Anyhow, I came back, and I don't know how it happened when I was trying to get ready to go back and play baseball after getting in some physical shape, when the doctor said, okay, you can go try it again in the spring of '53. Somehow or other, I tore a rotator cuff in my shoulder and didn't know what caused it. Still don't know, but in those days they didn't know what to do for it. It was rest, and then go to this doctor, Johns Hopkins. I went to the Mayo Clinic and University of California and Duke University. One period after the other, I got to know the hospitals real well, and finally went to, back in those days, the big guru for shoulder surgery. And in fact, the same guy, his name was Bennett, was at Johns Hopkins, and he'd operate on Dizzy Dean, and I think Van Lingham was the other guys. And nobody else could diagnose what the heck the problem was. But anyhow, I got there. He's the one that, after turning your arm and all that crap, said, you have a torn rotator cuff. We don't know what to do for it. We've tried to pin them. We've tried to tack them. We've tried to sew them. We don't know what to do. And I can remember well, my present wife was with me then. We were married, and said, son, let me tell you something. You're never going to pitch again. Go home and buy yourself a gas station. And that was the end of it. So I never looked back, and I've never, been one to say it could have been, would have been, should have been, or anything else. It was gone, and get on with your life. Mr. Rickey said, well, I'd like you to hang around baseball. Maybe you could do scouting. Maybe you could do office work or get in management or something. And it just didn't work out. And so I got out of it. And I've never lost being a baseball fan, and still keep up with a lot of guys. See a lot of guys at Seattle really face all the time, and used to play golf 3 days a week with Mazeroski until he moved. And I see Grote, he has a golf course up there, and Frank Thomas comes to the affairs, and I still see the guys, and I'm still a Pirate fan, of course. And but that's it. I got on with my life and did very well, and it comes up about every year the same thing. So now most of my story.
Now, so you went on with your life. Now, you also started a successful business. Is that correct?
Yes, I became what is called a manufacturer's rep, an independent sales rep for companies that were in the hunting, fishing, and shooting business. And spent 40 years in it. Loved every minute of it. Met some fantastic people, saw the world, and met a lot of fine people, and loved it. And baseball helped me. It really helped me. It got me in a lot of places and did a lot of things. And surprisingly, the things that baseball will do, the fans, I can remember a half a dozen instances where being a baseball player, or somebody recognized your name, and oh boy, that opened the door. But that's life.
Now, Ron, for me being in the sports card business, one thing that I do know about you is that you've always been generous when fans write to you asking you for an autograph. Do you ever get tired of signing items?
No, I don't. No, I don't. If somebody's that interested in baseball and they send you a card and they want to sign it, and I don't take money for it or anything, I got a whole pile of stuff from a guy the other day from Lancaster that he must have been a fan of mine, a whole pile of them. He sent a check, and when I send the goods back, my wife will tell you I tore the check in 4 pieces and send it back to him. There's charity that could use it. No, I don't mind. It kind of amazes me. I haven't played baseball in 70 years or 68 years or something like that. And so you still wind up with a newspaper article. It's surprising me right now. I don't know if you know who Selena Zito is. She writes for the CNN and the New York or the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Examiner, and she wrote a story on me that is now syndicated in 100 and I think she said 72 newspapers, and I'm getting articles from all over the country. There are people are sending me to sign, and people that know me or someplace. And in fact, Terry Dunlop, the guy that was a catcher in this game, that lives outside of Fresno, California, called a couple of days ago and said, "I'm here reading an article about you." And I just told him, I said, "Harry, if you read it, you know whether it's true or not. You were there." So no, I don't mind it. No, it's kind of flattering, I guess.
Well, and also, do you have any personal feelings on the sports card and memorabilia hobby? Any thoughts and feelings on how valuable some of these items are worth today?
No, never thought about it. Not to me. I have some pictures and things on the wall here in my room, things that I consider valuable to me that mean something to me, but no. That's something else.
Now, I do understand that there's a monumental statue of you that you were honored with. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it came as a shock. I have a friend in Bristol. His name's Kurt Palmrinky, and he's an attorney there, and he works for the people of Big Blue Emu stuff. And many years ago, I guess Kurt decided that they ought to build a monument or something to the event, because it was one of a kind, and it was done there in Bristol. And I didn't know anything about it until they called me and told me about it. And of course, we went down, my family and I went down to the unveiling or whatever you call it. But I also told them when they pulled the thing off and unveiled it that I was not going to be buried under it. So it's no.
I mean, I saw that statue online. It's quite large.
Yes, it is. I said the same thing. I'm big enough to put a casket. I'm not going there.
Well, Ron, I know that there are some records that are just mind-boggling and will probably never be broken. And, you know, your record of 27 batters striking out in a 9-inning game is beyond comprehension. You know what I mean?
Well, under today, I guess it is. You know, way back then, you're talking about a long, long time ago, it used to be the old tradition, I don't know what it is today, that the manager would come and give the starting pitcher, the warm-up ball, you know, and they'd make some comment. And it used to be in those days, it'd say, "Here, son, get him out, and either shut him out and we'll play till curfew time, or as long as you can handle it." But now, I guess, it's 100 pitches. In fact, I was playing golf at an outing with Claude Osteen and Elroy Faith and Maz in Destin, Florida, a couple of years ago. We were playing golf. And Claude, I think at that time, might have been the pitching coach for Arizona when they come up with this pitch count. And we were asking him in the bar after, who came up with this 100 pitch count or whatever? He said he doesn't know. Nobody seems to know. And he was a pitching coach. He said it's 100. And I said, well, the guy can't get any stronger. You know, if you only throw 100 pitches, his strength ends at 100, so that's all you're going to go. But no, I don't understand that. But I guess they got so much money in them now. There's contracts that you have to protect them. I don't know. But like I said, I'd have been a 4-inning pitcher.
And Ron, I want to get this in. My final question. A trivia tidbit that you told me yesterday. You wore number 21 before Clemente.
Correct.
That is amazing. And then in the minor leagues, you wore number 9?
Yes, at Bristol and at Burlington, I wore 9. And Mazeroski's a friend of mine, and he wore 9. And like I said, I played golf with him 3 days a week for years and years and years. And I always kid him. I said I wore two numbers that were destined to be in the Hall of Fame, but I wasn't going to be in either one of them. He just laughed.
What? Unbelievable. So, and any final thoughts? They're telling me I have 1 minute left.
No, I appreciate your calling, and if there's anything I can do, okay, and I sign for free or whatever. And thanks for remembering. I guess that's it. My family appreciates it, and whatever. Thank you for calling.
No, it's my pleasure. And how's your stomach, Ron? How you doing with your stomach? The stomach ulcers.
Stomach's fine. I guess that I don't know when it ended, but the stomach's fine, and I got a few other at my age. You have a few other problems. The stomach is one of them. So that's it.
Well, listen, it was an honor, and, hopefully we can do it again. And, thank you for your military service. And, you are a minor league baseball giant. There is absolutely no doubt about it, Ron.
Well, I can't spell giant, so I can't be anything I can't spell. So I'm not a giant.
All we have to do is look at that statue of yours. You are a baseball giant. I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much for calling, and I hope I didn't lose too many fans for you.
No way. This was fun. Take care of yourself, Ron. We'll do it again.
You too. Thank you for calling. Good day.
My pleasure. That was Ron Necciai. And everyone tuning in, next week's show, we have a new time slot. It'll be 8 a.m. Pacific Coast time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe. Happy collecting to all.